absolutely extraordinary guest. We have Florian Grumos from MidasTouch Consulting.com. Midas Touch hyphen consulting, by the way, .com. An absolute legend in the gold industry and the silver, precious metals in general investing, as someone that I've looked up to for years in terms of getting feedback on my own thought process when it comes to investing. Florian, it's been a long time, far too long. How are you going, my friend?
Thanks, Joshua. It's good to see you again. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's you're a guy that's based all around the world. Every time I talk to you, you're somewhere else and in some other conference and speaking engagements, and you've been on many shows talking about everything um, from precious metals investing to freedom and liberty and philosophical conversations as well. Um, what uh, what do you see? The thing that most that is on most people's lips are the all the tariffs. Once Trump gets in, the
Mm.
tariff bill, everything's swapping over to tariffs. My hope is that they will be able to go so hard with different tariffs and cutting the government right down that they'll be able to actually get rid of the income tax altogether in America and show the world how it's done. Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not too deep into American politics, but what we certainly can expect that the next few years will get intensive. I mean, I think first of all, Donald Trump can be called the first Bitcoin president. I think, and he's also probably the first American king, because that's how he actually, yeah, behaves himself, and that's how it looks like the inauguration will be, and that's how yeah, I mean, many big names in America have basically moved to his side over the last few weeks since he won the elections. And I had just look what happened with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. I mean, they completely rolled back their censorship on the platform. I think Apple, Tim Cook donated 1 million for the inauguration. I mean, this is like a crazy swing from one side of the, the spectrum to the other. I think it's as long as Trump is pro free speech and free markets, I think it's gonna be in the end of the day a good thing. We have to see how he behaves. And mentioning the tariffs, I mean, we all know that tariffs doesn't make sense. It's not free markets; it's actually the contrary. And if he will push this kind of thing really forward, I think he will create more tensions globally speaking. He will create more inflation for the American people. And what he will basically get is more tariffs from outside of the US, from foreign countries against America as well. I mean, I'm based in Europe mainly. I'm traveling a lot, but I'm between Munich and Dubai most of the time. But in Europe, we have so far zero strategy against this. But I think an aggressive Trump will awakening more reaction in Europe as well. So I'm not sure what will be the outcome. We all know that Trump usually is very loud and very aggressive in the beginning, and then everybody's happy to settling a deal with him somewhere in the middle. So that's mainly his business strategy. And
Mm.
I assume something like this will happen over the next few years, but it's going to be an intensive ride, an interesting ride for sure as well. So let's see.
Yeah. There's a great big hiss, and I don't know where it's from. Let's see if it just went away. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think obviously what is trying to happen here is that we have workers going back to the US, reshoring manufacturing. The problem that I see there is the skills shortage is huge as Americans have offshored for far too long, Australians too, Europeans too, that the skill set just isn't there anymore. and so they will have to import the skill sets. And I have seen that there's this big fight back against H-1B visas, which were designed to enable highly skilled individuals to have a visa and to get over to the States to work. I don't see the tariff thing working without that. Because if you want to scale manufacturing really, really quickly, it's not going to happen without something like that, without bringing in highly skilled workers from China, even because you can't just instantly know everything about making chips, for instance, or making any manufacturing anything. I mean, the amount of skill that China has gotten over the last few decades is so extraordinary. Um, a friend of mine built some inflatable things for a festival he was hosting, and he just gave them some 3D, some 2D things that he created in Midjourney, or one of these AI image generations. Send it to this company in China. They made a 3D version of this stuff, and then created all of these massive inflatable things that they stuck a fan on and it blew right up. And out of this image, like the amount of skill in stitching and machinery and everything to get this happening is so extraordinary. I'm not saying it's not, obviously it's possible in the States or anywhere, but those skills need to happen. And I think people are expecting there to be, people are very sort of Amazon, I want it tomorrow. I want it delivered at my house tomorrow. And so I just don't think the economy can switch so quickly. So I think they're going to bear a bit of pain. But, as we know, when you have a terrible economy, you need to turn it around, and that causes some pain. And yeah, Argentina's seeing that, and it's just part of the parcel of turning an economy around, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they really want to attack bureaucracy and the deep state, that might create a lot of pain because lots of those budgets would have to be cut, and that has been also somehow supporting the markets, right? I mean, we've seen a massive fiscal stimulus over the last 2 or 3 years that actually helped the market push higher. So it's going to be very interesting. I agree that China in many areas is actually already ahead of the US. I mean, if you look at the patents that are getting registered, if you look at robotics, if you look at AI, I think in many ways China is already ahead of America. But then again, most of the Chinese people would immediately take a visa from US and leave China. And if you look at if you would personally invest your money into China, you would most likely tell me no, because you have no trust in the government and you have no trust in the currency. Yet, or let's say at the same time, America has by far the deepest capital markets, which still attracts a lot of money. You have to remember that imagine you're a millionaire in Turkey, in Bulgaria, in Italy, in South Africa, somewhere, pick any country in the world. You cannot invest in your local currency anymore. You cannot invest in the local stock market. What you want to do is send your money to the American stock market. And that has created over the years, besides other factors, or it's part of it, it has created such deep capital markets that not any other country on the planet has. And that's a huge advantage of America, and that continues to attract capital into the country. And I think that will continue. And if Trump manages to bring in more free market elements, I mean, yes, you can actually spark quite a boom there. It's often enough already if some tax cuts, some reforms, less regulation, that often can already help to spark new momentum. Because in the end of the day, people want to work, what people want to create. Mankind is always driven by improving things and making life better. So if you unleash that power that we all have within, I think there is a lot of things imaginable for America. He most likely will try to talk down the US dollar, which should help the stock markets, which should help gold and precious metals, and which should also help, of course, crypto and Bitcoin. I think he's the first Bitcoin president, and he acts and behaves like a king. Whether he's been elected like this or not is on a different paper, but it's very interesting. It's very complex. You have America clearly continuing to push tech forwards. You have the Magnificent Seven ruling everything. American stock market is basically more than 40% of the total world stock market. And the American stock market itself is dominated by few companies that make more than 50% of the whole market cap, which is insanely concentrated. At the same time, yeah, you have Elon Musk now being part of the government, basically, a very successful, forward-thinking, disruptive entrepreneur. I mean, these people are very driven, but also highly skilled, and you can, I think, expect results that you would not see from your normal politician. So America is pushing towards tech, towards Bitcoin, towards all this, while China is buying physical gold like crazy. And it's a very interesting kind of world we're living in. I don't know how this all will play out. I think we all have to be honest with ourselves. The world has become so complex with AI and robotics and all this, and it's hard to even imagine what it will happen in 4 or 5 years. I think it's impossible to foresee the future now because the quantum leaps are so vast and so fast, and it's just the beginning of all this. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a sound money guy. I've been focusing on gold for the last 25 years and on Bitcoin for the last 13 years nearly. Um, that has paid off well for me. I assume governments in the end of the day will have to print more. I think Trump will push the Fed to print more. He wants to see a stock market rising. Bitcoin is strongly correlated with the stock market. And at the same time, the Asians need more and more diversification out of the US dollar. So gold as well will continue to rise. So overall, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to continue what we've seen over the last few years. I just assume that volatility will get insane this year. So, but overall, I think cracker boom continues, pushing all assets higher. Life is getting more expensive. Inflation will remain a problem. And if you have no clue what to do with your money or your fiat and how to invest, then yeah, you have a problem.
Yeah, that's why I think like the only way to really deal with the inflationary costs of high tariffs would be A, to pump a lot of new energy out of the ground, um, and and make energy super cheap to negate that, and lower income taxes so people don't get angry and pissed off. Because even if they want to try and get um, even 500 billion. I think generally, I think income taxes are like 2.2 trillion dollars per year that are brought in. And so if they want to get anywhere near that, it's going to have to be, I think even if you tariff everything at 50%, you're still not going to get anywhere near that. Um, so, um, so I think there will have to be a lot of cuts. And but why I'm talking about this, and I know we're European and stuff, is America sneezes, we all catch a cold. But on the opposite side, when America is also very inspiring for the rest of the world. If we see something works, other politicians in other countries, well, people will demand, hey, they're doing that in America. Why aren't we doing that here? And a lot of the time, that will happen too. So, um, but my question really comes down to this: how, what do you see in terms of the role that precious metals and these hedges, these traditional hedges, come when it comes to, uh, well, I guess the greater economy over the next few years, where gold is seeing an all-time high right now. But do you think that it will play a role because of the inflation we'll see from these tariffs? Oh, you're on mute.
You mean that precious metals will play a role in the next few years because of this?
Yeah, yeah, in terms of global monetary policy.
Look, I mean, gold made a new all-time high last October, end of October, at $2,790. Massive rally over the last 2 years since the triple low at 1650 in October, November 2022. So within 2 years, gold basically gained $1,200. Massive move higher. unprecedented over the last 2, 3 decades, actually since the 1970s. But this was mainly driven by physical demand out of Asia, out of China, out of central banks in the emerging markets buying gold. And it was also driven by geopolitics. So it was strongly linked and correlated with events happening in Gaza, in Israel. You could see that if there was massive bombing over the weekend, gold would already open up with a gap higher on Monday. So uh, it has a geopolitical premium. I think if, for example, Trump would manage to create peace in Ukraine, we might actually see a war premium coming out of the gold price. But China, the central bank, the People Bank of China, has started to buy again, officially buy again gold in November and December. They did a little break or hiatus for, I think, 6 months. And they are desperately in need to increase their gold and currency reserves. And so they will continue to simply buy physical gold and probably don't care too much about the price. So the whole setup is very complex. You know that gold has been in the West. I mean, the prices have been managed, so to speak, and manipulated via the paper gold market at the LBMA and the COMEX for decades. And since the introduction of the Shanghai Physical Gold Exchange a few years ago, we can see that it's getting harder and harder for these paper jugglers basically to bring prices back down on a sustainable fashion. So you see still pullbacks, of course, which is normal, but gold is strong, and I believe it will continue higher, not so much because of the tariffs, but simply because of the need that countries like China and Russia and also India and some African countries and some Asian countries have the need to diversify themselves away from the dollar. And Mr. Trump certainly will intensify that need because with his tariffs and with his rather aggressive way of talking and acting with people, the need for an alternative to the US dollar within their currency mix, within their reserve mix is high. And they still are underinvested in gold. The gold rally over the last 2.5 years has not been driven by Western investors. So you could see for until last spring that the gold ETFs actually had outflows. So it was a clear sign that the West was not participating really in that rally. And you can also still make the argument if you look at the gold mining stocks, for example, they're completely disconnected or mostly disconnected from this strong gold price. They have a huge catch up, a huge opportunity as well, but they lagging because the Western investors have not been driving this rally in gold. It's been the Asian, the Chinese investors, and I think that will continue. But it could be that at some point, if inflation becomes more obvious again, that then also maybe the Western world will wake up and start buying gold.
Yeah, interesting. Um, how do you think Bitcoin plays a role in that? Is Bitcoin being taken seriously as well? I mean, there are rumors of a strategic reserve in Bitcoin in the States. I've also heard some Arab countries are thinking about it as well. Obviously, we have El Salvador. Um, do you think that that's a serious um, thing to chase?
I think it is a serious thing to chase because of game theoretical thought process. It's clear that more and more players are simply forced to take part in this whole thing. And overall, if you look on a big scale of things, people are still, I mean, on a global world, it's still less than 5% really participating in Bitcoin. So there is still huge upside just by bringing more people into the whole ecosystem or investing, just starting to invest in Bitcoin. I mean, personally, I'm not as enthusiastic as I used to be when we first met, for example. And I mean, when I got in touch with Bitcoin 12, 13 years ago, and then went down the rabbit hole, I see it completely different today. I think the Bitcoin ETFs have destroyed Bitcoin. Wall Street has embraced Bitcoin and perverted basically. It's not the original idea anymore. Wall Street and especially BlackRock are controlling more than 40% of the Bitcoin and of the Bitcoin mining and then of the Bitcoin positions, so they can at any time come up with whatever kind of schemes they want. If they would like to fork it, if they want to push the price down, if they want to push the price up, they can do whatever with it. So believing that this is a decentralized asset that will change our monetary system, I think is absurd now with what happened. And it's very much establishment now. The Wall Street banks are pushing it. They all are keen to make money here. I don't think that there's a way back. It reminds me very much on the gold market with the introduction of the gold futures in the early 1980s, which basically gave the Wall Street back then the tool to manipulate and manage the price of gold, because suddenly it was not about physical anymore. And if you look then on the next step, like this huge, crazy speculative, crazy leveraged house of cards that Michael Saylor is building, and that now many others are copying. And I mean, you can be sure that this is already creating the recipe for the next disaster in that sector. It's not happening today, tomorrow, and probably not within the next few months, and probably not even in this year. But once we have a bear market again, it's going to be a crazy shit show. I think you will see Bitcoin not pulling back 75%, but much more than the last cycle.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I think it could be at the height of the bull market that we start seeing this, because that's when people start right at that tipping point, right when after we've had gains and gains and gains and gains. That's when the real idiots come along and go, this is just keeps on going higher. Why am I missing out? I'm going to leverage up like crazy. And they stack all their dominoes into a large, big, you know, skyscraper, and then the market turns and they get margin squeezed.
No,
Yeah,
you have to
it's
understand the amount of leverage that Michael Saylor is building here. Right? If usually at some point, if somebody tries to corner the market will react and will, I mean, they will delete this guy who tried
yeah,
to. If you remember, the Hunt brothers, they tried to corner silver. I mean, they changed the rules at the end of the day, and the Hunt brothers lost everything in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and they were at some point, I think, owning 40% of the silver market or something.
it's
So
wild.
um, the market, most likely in a bear market, the market will try to test where is really the maximum pain level of MicroStrategy, and if MicroStrategy then is not able to pay back these debts that they have created, or uh, Bitcoin falls below their entry price, um, that can create a lot of problems. And you have to understand there is such a huge house of cards, a huge derivative market. Right now, it works perfect, and as long as it moves higher, I mean, this stock has wonderful leverage, and it's a great way to leverage your Bitcoins actually. But once it turns around, I mean, the, the potential here for a disaster is huge. Not only because it's MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor, but because he's became so successful now. Everybody's following his steps, right? So you see many other companies now copying what he's been doing, and so trust me that once we have a turn in the cycle here in a bear market, it's going to be a nightmare, because there's going to be so much forced liquidations of Bitcoins at some point. And then again, I mean, now in the end of the day, it's all connected now with the stock market. Bitcoin is basically 3x the Nasdaq, and we also know, by the way, I mean, investor legends like Jim Rogers, he's been selling out all his US stocks. Warren Buffett is scaling down his US exposure in the stock market massively. He's a big investor, so it takes a few quarters until he's basically reducing all his positions, but that's what's going on already. And so I'm just saying that I think I expect Bitcoin to go to 130K this year, but I also think that it's not the original one anymore, and I don't like how this industry has what this industry has become and how it has changed. And I don't think it's the original idea anymore. But in an inflationary environment, Bitcoin will still outperform all the other asset classes for sure.
I want to pull you up, just challenge you a little bit on that point. What exactly? I mean, Bitcoin's notorious for not changing, right? It's apart from the SegWit upgrade, it really it's so hard to push anything through. So fundamentally, nothing's really changed. What's changed is who the buyers are. and the structure of buying large volumes and storing it on behalf of people, and then interfacing that with legal and financial products like ETFs and such. But fundamentally, the technology hasn't really changed. So BlackRock, while they hold a lot, they still don't have the hashing power, and the hashing power is so silly now. Like we passed 1,000 exahashes um, a few weeks ago. It's gone back down a bit now, but just to give the viewers a bit of an idea of what an exahash is, that is one exahash is like 10 to the power of 18 or something. So you got to think that's about the same amount of grains of sand on every beach on Earth is one exahash. So imagine a computer labeling every single grain of sand on every beach on Earth with a hash every second. And now imagine 1,000 Earths doing that every second. That's how ridiculously powerful the Bitcoin network has gone through because of this game theory of people wanting to find these rare numbers. It's such a mind-bogglingly huge number that and this, like, if Google pointed every single CPU GPU they had, it wouldn't even add 0.1% to the network. Like the hashing power is too extraordinary. So I don't know if BlackRock really can do anything in terms of changing unless they go around and bribe the miners, I guess. But I would challenge that. I think what could happen though is proof of stake is really susceptible to what you're talking about. Something like BlackRock, if they had the Ethereum ETFs got too big and they had a lot of Ethereum, then they could definitely have more control and say over that market.
Look, I agree with you in terms of that analysis, but what really counts in the end of the day, and that's why you and I talk about Bitcoin here, is the price. If Bitcoin would trade around 10 cents, we wouldn't have this discussion, right?
Yeah.
It's trading around 100K, and it went up like crazy over the last 12, 13 years, and it always needed new narratives and new buyers to bring prices higher. Now we are talking a Bitcoin reserve. We have Bitcoin ETFs. I mean, what's next? I don't know. They will force all the grandmothers to buy Bitcoin, or what's going to happen next?
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. But everything's like that. Gold is like that. Everything is like that. You got to get the new generation. Hey, do you like gold? Gold's great. iPhone has got to have a new iPhone.
But the main challenge for people to hold on to their Bitcoins and to actually experience the beauty that Bitcoin can bring is this crazy volatility, which is, of course, also an opportunity. But now you have all these ETF holders, not your keys, not your coins. That has been our mantra. Now you have constantly millions of people being pushed to buy these products, and they have no access to their Bitcoin. Actually, somebody else is holding it for them. And this is mainly BlackRock. And again, we know that BlackRock is already controlling vast parts of this planet, and they don't necessarily have the best intentions for the people who live in these houses or own these businesses, right? Of course, in the end of the day, they just want to make more money, but they also want to have more control and power. And what I'm saying is that in the end of the day, yes, the network itself is very powerful, but the price is so important. And Bitcoin drops to 20K. It will be maybe an opportunity for people who really understand it, but the vast majority will again lose everything because they will throw in the towel, they will freak out, they will get liquidated, etc., etc. And I'm worried that these huge house of cards that are being built here are dangerous in the longer run if we have the next bear market. And again,
they are.
And I don't think that it is the original idea if Wall Street basically controls it. So breaking it down very simple, I think that Wall Street has realized they cannot conquer and control Bitcoin and the network. So they have embraced it basically, and so it's not the idea of a sound money decentralized for the people. It is not. I don't think so. I don't see it. But it doesn't mean that it can go to 1 million and be the best protection for you in an inflationary environment. You know, it's still possible. So it's
What do you
just
think of other coins then? Because for me, Bitcoin was the first, right? So it's our first love. It's there. It's amazing.
of course.
But like you said, let's go down that narrative of okay, it's not the same thing anymore. Wall Street's taking it over. Do you think that because the genie's out of the bottle, right? Anybody can spark a new chain or a token or anything else. Obviously, a token's different because it's sitting on a chain, but but what do you think? Do you think there are some coins out there? Do you think more fungible tokens like Monero are interesting? Do you think they're not interesting, or where's your thesis on the rest of the
I think it's
market?
all speculation, and I think what I have learned now going through being in my fourth cycle, I don't want to hold any altcoins during a bear market. So it's just you because the drawbacks, the pullbacks are so insane. I mean,
Yeah,
you usually in every coin, whatever it is, you give back at least 80 to 90%. And that's just too
mm,
much. I'm not. I'm not willing to do that anymore. It's just such an emotional roller coaster, and most of the time, none of those coins has been coming back in the next cycle, right? I mean, just very few. Of course, I think Solana is a good bet in this cycle. I think Solana wants to see $1,000 probably in that cycle if it more or less copies what Ethereum and Bitcoin have been doing in the past. Um, um, I think there's certain layer twos that are interesting. Of course, I'm keeping an eye on Sui. I have a few interesting things like stacks I really like, but it's all speculation. And I mean, I find it interesting and exciting to see a coin like Fartcoin going up 7,000% in 2 months. And there's nothing
yeah,
behind it. It's just a meme. And yes, you can trade culture now, and the kids are freaking out, and it's funny. But we both know that in 2 years from now, this thing is most likely completely worthless. So it's just a short term speculation. And if you know what you're doing, perfect, go for it. But the reality is that most people who buy into these vehicles are losing everything in these positions, right? And because it's so
yeah.
difficult to understand, and they usually all come late, and there's just a few people who've been early who make all the money, and it's always the same. It's been always the same, and that's not only true for crypto, but it's true in anything else as well. I mean, so I'm pretty much agnostic these days about all these things. I believe it's just all a big casino and a big speculation, and you can have fun and enjoy, and hopefully you will be successful, but there's huge risks that you will lose everything basically.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of these people in something like Farcoin, they're really playing the role of we just want to see financial analysts using their jargon and then every so often dropping Farcoin as in the word, you know, talking about Fibonacci's and this and that and the other thing, and then dropping tones like that live on air. I think that's the I think the whole world's run by Beavis and Butthead now. Um,
Exactly.
but
I mean, look, the market cap of Fartcoin is larger than all the silver mining juniors in the world who own big projects, who've been digging in the ground for the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's crazy. And this is a few kids developing in this over a weekend. I mean, it's insane, but that's what it is. It tells you how degenerated we are and how risky the whole thing is. But it tells you also that, yeah, we are in a new age where tech and digital rules the world, and these kind of things are possible. And it's of course also a big opportunity, right? It's just
Yeah,
very
but I think
difficult.
there's a misconception there, Florian. Like, and I think this is perpetuated by the mainstream media and just general as well, is that these market cap numbers are bullshit because it's really liquidity. If even just one thousandth of the Farcoin holders wanted to sell, that market cap would drop so fast. So I think realistically speaking, it's not even worth even one of those micros because if enough liquidity started just pushing down, that just gets wiped out and they're on to the next thing. If we saw that Uniswap actually had USDC of millions and millions, $500 million of USDC sitting in a pool, okay, then we could say, okay, that's a healthy, strong market. But the fact of the matter is, the USDC or the the stablecoin that's paired against these on the buying side, when you want to sell your, is really thin on most of these tokens, and so I think that's an important say. People get too carried away with the market cap, and both me and if I mint 1 trillion tokens and sell you one for $1, you could officially say the market cap is $1 trillion, and I mean, obviously more people are sophisticated now. The market's a little bit more sophisticated than that, but a lot of the time it boils down to that. Especially these meme coins, they're just ridiculous. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, of course. I mean, this coin went up 7,000%, so there has been buying, there has been trading volume.
yeah,
It's not happened over one weekend. Um,
no,
but it tells you, like, I mean, you also know, like, how many coins, and it's impossible to keep up with all this, right? And I mean, I of course remember the good old days when, like, Ethereum came around and you had to get your head around smart contracts, and it was the first real altcoin. And I mean, of course, the whole thing has changed so much, and it has become so fast and so speculative in every sense. But again, I mean, there's big opportunities, but I don't think any of this will be a long-term investment. It's obviously a speculation within the cycle, makes sense, but I tend to not want to hold any of those coins once there's a
yeah,
top. And again, uh, in the end of the day, you still need Bitcoin as the trust layer to keep to get anything running in the whole sector, right? If Bitcoin
mm.
doesn't have a bull run or moves higher, there's nothing going to happen with any of these coins. So
I one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I know we don't have you for too much longer, but is artificial intelligence and how you see that impacting the global workforce. Um, and this thing called money, which is effectively a type of proof of work. I've got this money. It proves that I've done some work, and I'm going to pay you now for the eggs that you make, and then you have proof of work. What if AI? Do you think AI is such a massive threat to the general workforce? Do you think that we need to rethink how money works in general? What's your take?
I think AI is a huge risk for mankind itself. I mean, we've seen already quite a few examples coming up over the last few months that AI systems basically did something on their own and attacked other systems or created or hided some code somewhere or did some weird stuff that was not intended by the programmers and coders. So I think it's going to get completely wild the next few years. Of course, you can use AI. Lots of programs and tools are very helpful depending on what you do. I mean, I've seen things in music production, unbelievable what you can do nowadays. I mean, just creating pictures, videos, obviously text, whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable the tools that are already there, and every week there's something new, and every week it's getting better and faster and more amazing. So there's lots of opportunities, but people need to get their heads around it and they need to use it. And if you don't, you will most likely be left behind. And where we're gonna be in 5 years, I think it's impossible to forecast because I think things once again are speeding up insanely. I mean, that's the whole thing that I experienced since the internet came around. That constantly everything is getting more faster, bigger, grower, more, and I don't know where this is going to end.
Yeah,
Um,
you
it's
know, that's
interesting.
what I've as well. Like when people have asked me about AI, it's really that's the fear. It's just too fast to keep up with. The change will become too fast that even the young who are traditionally very good at keeping up won't be able to keep up, and the elderly are already lost.
Right, right. I mean, it's already the amount, just the amount of data and emails and stuff that comes along my screen every day. It's insane if I compare this with 20, 25 years ago. I mean, the good old
Yeah.
analog days, life was
Yeah.
easy, life was slow, life was good, and now you're just like constantly bombarded with WhatsApp messages, Telegram messages, LinkedIn messages, 100 emails every day, constantly availability here, there, bam, and then on top like 50 new articles that they publish with you, and it's insane the amount of data that you have to manage already, and it's going to be more crazy because we see that how many things. I mean, it's an interesting AI agents in crypto, for example. I mean, this is all going to be super exciting and interesting, but the challenge is really to have enough time and resources to wrap your head around it and really dig deep and understand it, because it's moving so fast. And again, I think it's hard to forecast where we will be in 4 or 5 years, but the average normal worker, he will be left behind, because we soon will have robots running around and doing lots of stuff for us. So we will get rid most likely of many jobs, and there will be new opportunities, of course, but yeah, you have to be very open-minded and flexible and adaptive, and unfortunately most people are not like that.
You know, I explained it to a friend the other day. I kind of feel that AI is like a tsunami where people are seeing the ocean move back out right now and they're going, "Oh wow, this is interesting. Look how cool's that. What the hell? This is wild." And little do they know that in just a few minutes time, this massive wall of water will just come back in. And I feel like that's us now with ChatGPT. We're like, oh, look, I can code something now. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, look, I can, don't need this person and that person. I can just quick, very cool stuff. We're enchanted. But the swaths of certain sectors that will just be wiped out so quickly. And that's, I guess, what frightens me is the speed of enormous amounts of the economy being displaced very quickly. And by the time they retrain, whatever they've retrained to has been wiped out. So my question really is, as someone that has studied the economic theory of many different philosophers and theorists, when I talk to the right, they just say there's always going to be jobs. Don't worry about it, Josh. When I talk to the left, they're like socialism. That's the answer. Where do we? What is the answer? Because we've seen that neither are like, for me, neither are a good answer.
Well, I mean, the answer is always freedom. If you give people enough freedom, they somehow will figure out a way forward, usually, unless we are ruled by AI-driven robots and systems, and we are really becoming slaves. But if mankind is free, well, people will come up with good ideas, and people will develop new ideas and challenge the current setup and bring solutions. I mean, that's always been the case with mankind, and I strongly believe that this ability is not gone. It's there, and it will push back. But people need the freedom, and the freedom is not coming through socialistic or systems and censorship. Freedom is free markets, it's free speech. You have to accept that people have a different opinion, and you have to have the right and the ability to just do whatever you want in your life, and develop new ideas. And there has to be also an incentive for the one who comes up and puts all the hard work into it. If that's not there, then it will not happen. And we've been, in my opinion, marching in the completely wrong direction over the last 10, 20, 30 years in the West. I mean, actually, I still strongly believe that the end of the gold standard in 1971 and actually the introduction of the Fed in 1913 have played huge roles, in where we are today, because we have lost the connection with where we're coming from, with Earth, with the nature, with everything, because everything can be just created out of thin air, meaning money is created out of thin air. Nobody necessarily has to work hard for it anymore. There's no consequences anymore, and there's also often no incentives anymore for the hard work that you put in. So I think if we get more freedom, and the hope, of course, is that Trump and Musk will bring more freedom. Whether it really will play out, we have to see. But if that happens, I believe that mankind will come up with solutions in the future. But if not, yeah, we are facing digital slavery and the end of what mankind used to be. And I think uh,
So how do you think money will play? Because let's say you don't have a job anymore, you've been displaced, and this is then because it's okay when maybe 20% of the economy gets displaced and the rest still have a job. But when 50%, 60% lose their work, um, it becomes very hard, and we need to very quickly structure a new system. And what I see most people gravitate to is print money, give it to us. I mean, we saw it during the scamdemic. Is like, oh, we'll just give everyone stimulus checks, and now we have this huge inflation, which is kind of a kick-on effect of that, as far as I can summate.
right.
So
I mean, that's the
yeah,
usual reaction or the usual expectation by most people in a society because people have no clue about money and they just have their little world and it just needs to continue and they have bills to pay. So that's the expectation. And most likely, I mean, that's what has to be expected over the next 5 to 10 years. I think there is no real solution to 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 solve these problems. Even
and
if
people talking about like a robot tax or a, AI tax, but where do you
I
draw the line with that? Yeah.
I mean, I think it will relieve mankind as well from many works, hopefully, that just take time and don't make anything for your life better. Like if robots can take many of those jobs, and then there's a robot kind of like economy, and they doing their own businesses, and we can tax this and whatever. I mean, there's lots of crazy, fancy ideas where this is all going. We have to see. I mean, I think the most important advice that I can just tell you is you have to be open-minded. You have to be an optimist. You have to look and search for the opportunities. Because if you close your mind and you just are afraid or are in denial or are against it, it will not help you to adapt. Instead, I mean, that's what we know from evolution. If you don't adapt, then you get basically wiped out. So I think that's the most important takeaway and approach. You have to constantly be willing to adapt, even if it's painful, even if it doesn't make sense. Things are constantly changing. It's becoming faster than ever before. And if you are stuck in your old beliefs, yeah, you will be wiped out.
Amazing, amazing. It's almost like a Luddite will do well because you can just learn to be homesteading and milk cows and have your own pig. And, you'll survive there, or do the opposite, become really astute to adapting and changing with the technology, and you'll do well there as well. Yeah, interesting. Florian, anything else that you want to mention here to the audience before we head off?
No, just thank you for the time. I enjoyed talking with you, catching up with you. It's interesting. I believe, I mean, that's been actually also in my music productions always the approach to combine analog and digital. So I used to love programming digital beats and using synth and like crazy programmed bass lines, but I always wanted to make sure to have a real funky guitar player and a real voice or a real saxophone, and the combination was always great. And I've been early doing this like 20, 25 years ago. And I think and do the same with the financial markets. I believe the combination of analog, real physical stuff like precious metals, gold and silver, and on the other hand, digital assets like Bitcoin are a great combination and they complement each other. And
Yeah.
I believe that will probably be the best foundation to step into the future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Florian. If people want to catch up with what you're doing, where do they go?
It's Midas Touch minus consulting is the website.com is the website. We have a free Telegram channel, Midas Touch Consulting as well. You will find us on Telegram. And we have Substack. daily calls on gold, silver, Bitcoin. We have weekly research on those three assets and also in-depth monthly research. It's all free. Just sign up for it via email, Twitter, LinkedIn, Substack, or join the Telegram channel.
Yeah, it's a great resource, guys. And please give us a thumbs up on the video. And thanks to all those that are new subscribers out there. It really keeps us enthusiastic. Yeah, Florian, thank you so much. And I'm very glad to see you healthy. And yeah, please stay well.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. All the best.
Thank you very much. Well,